Are you tired of losing at chess? Stick around. Alright, let's look at this problem and see what's up. Alright, now, I say this before, I say it again in every video, just because there's always a new person that's looking at this and they need to know what we're doing. So, we're doing this tournament style. We're not going to touch the pieces with this mouse until we're ready to make our entire combination. This is how you'd play it in a tournament game. So, there's four things that I tell you to look at. We look for checks, we look for captures. We look at all of them, regardless of how ridiculous they seem. We look at piece contacts, which I'll explain, and we look at board position, or board situation, sorry. So, for checks, we have, queen takes h2 check, queen takes g3 check, queen f4 check, queen d4 check. Those are the only checks we have. Okay, queen f6 check. All right. Captures. Take this with the queen, take this with the queen, take this rook with the bishop, and that's all the captures. Piece contact. Now, piece contact is a move where you're moving a piece to attack another piece, like queen to h5 could attack this queen. All right. Now we know it's a ridiculous move. He plays queen takes queen, laughs at us like Nelson Muntz, and we lose. So that's piece contacts. So we have, this one, queen to h3. We've already looked at all the captures and the checks. So we're not going to look at those moves, but those would count as well. Queen g4, queen e4, queen, any queen attacking anything over here on the queen side would do it, c4, b4, a4. It gets ridiculous, all right? But you just be aware that they exist. You never know when this crazy looking move turns out to be something that ends up winning the game. Not going to happen in this problem. I'm just telling you that. But sometimes it does. You have to assume you go into these positions. The smart guy says, you know what, I'm going to assume that I know nothing beyond your chess ability, whatever that is. I don't want to go in there biased, okay? Because a bias will prevent you from seeing things that you need to see. A detective goes to the crime scene and discards his mental bias of anything. It doesn't matter. What he likes, what he dislikes, it doesn't matter. You have to look at the evidence. And this is like a crime scene. We're looking at the evidence. We're trying to find the move that, solves the crime, essentially. It's like we're like chess detectives. I almost called my channel Chess Detective. It was really close because that was a good name. But, whatever. So, and then the last thing we look at is board situation. Like, are we checkmating? Are we in a mating attack on this guy? Or is he leveling a mating attack against us? Is he pawn forking us? Is he threatening to do something special? Things of that nature. Now in this one, board situation looks like we're initiating an attack against the white king because he's kind of out in the open and he's a little naked. So, that being said, now we can start looking at what we're doing. This is how, lower rated players learn to be good players, is by having these elements explained to them properly. That's why I accelerate your advancement. Instead of saying, well, go study Ruy Lopez 20 moves deep. That won't do anything for you at a lower ranking. That's something a higher rated player does to fine-tune his game if he plays Ruy Lopez. All right, so the moves that come to mind, at this point when you've looked at all these four elements, then if something jumps out at you, you're more properly armed to check it out. So if you look at, for example, now our bishop is killer on this long diagonal. It's just killer. Okay, we own these white squares. That's fantastic. So my thinking is that I see this open black diagonal and I just want to put something here. We don't have a black bishop. Our queen is now going to have to assume the role of the black bishop. So, or the dark square bishop, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. So the thing that jumps out to me is queen d4 check, because we're initiating this attack against his king. And if you look at it, what really makes it pop out is the fact that he has nothing that can block on the e3 square. His dark square bishop is covered. It's not like if we played queen c5, he'd play d4, which would be an awesome move for white, okay? But he can't play that awesome move because we're going to go, or are looking at queen to d4 check. That's the move that jumps out at me, because we want to check his exposed king. His exposed kings under check tend to yield either material advantage through double attacks with queens or checkmates, okay? And the most, you know, on a high percentage, I'm not going to say the most, but on a very high percentage, that's what will happen. You'll win material or you'll checkmate him when he's way open like this. But you got to be smart about it, and that's what separates the men from the boys. So let's look at this queen to d4 check. It would just give us white and black control. The only thing he can do is move his king either to e2 or to e1, okay, which is very good. Now, to me, king e1 is the better move, and I'll show you why king e2 is terrible. Basically speaking, what it boils down to is that at the very least, we check this guy, we get our queen is under attack, okay? That's part of the board situation. This pawn is threatening to take our queen. So basically, all we have to do is check this king with the queen to where it's not attacked and not vulnerable to a counter combination. That's always key. We check him on d4, he moves, heck, we just play bishop takes rook. Unless we have an absolutely direct mating combination. That would be the exception, is a direct mating combination. But essentially speaking, you're looking at this is an absolute win. Queen d4 check, bishop takes rook would win. There's nobody who comes back from this, essentially. So let's just look at this. Queen d4 check. If he goes king to e2, you know, then we're threatening, you know, to, he just blocks, he blocks his defensive deal, because if he goes to e1, this is what he can do. Queen d4 check, king to e1. Now, if we're greedy and stupid and play like queen to e4 check, he can play queen to e2. And suddenly, he might be counter-threatening to discover check and do some damage to us. We don't want to allow him any kind of counterplay while we're attacking. I attack you to finish you like Mortal Kombat, not to give you counterplay. So queen d4 check is the move. I think king to e1 is his best shot to maybe stab back at us if we make a mistake, okay? He's just dead lost. The only thing is, I don't see, after queen d4 check, king e1, I don't see any way for us to checkmate this guy. He's got too much defensive. We really need another piece over here, like a knight or that bishop, which we don't have. So I'm thinking queen d4 check, which is clearly winning. King e1, and then the move that really does the deal. Now there's going to be a, you know, maybe more than one winning move. There's another one for sure. You have two choices. Queen d4 check, king e1. You can play queen takes knight check, which I think is the best move, because if he interposes his queen, you trade queens and then play bishop takes rook, and you're going to win two pieces. Okay, that's the deal. But queen d4 check, king e1, bishop takes rook is winning. It is winning. But hey, I'm greedy. I'm going to take the second piece. You know, my dad was a big believer in cleaning the clock when it's offered. So I'm going to take the knight and the rook. That's me. Okay, so my solution says queen d4 check. King e2 is terrible. We're just going to take this check with no threat of any kind of counterplay and then take that rook. Whatever. This is his minuscule chance of, hey, maybe we're dumb. Maybe we play bishop takes rook. I've seen it happen before. If you go to enough tournaments, you're going to see some stupid moves every once in a great while. So now our queen is under attack, right? Fairly obvious. Trade queens, check him, eat the rook. All right. Congratulations, we won this. Now, the key thing, we're a rook ahead, actually. The key thing is, by paying attention, using my system, this looked a lot easier than it did when you first saw it. I hope that's what you say. It's not as it's a fairly obvious problem as your skill level increases. But if you're a 1200 player, it's confusing because you don't know how to do it. You can suspect that you have something, but my system explains this to you, and it works on every problem every time. It's just a matter of executing, and that's the key. I'm trained in science, and so I said I was going to create a scientific method to analyze and break down positions, and what it does is allows me to solve problems that look ridiculous. This was not a ridiculous problem. There are some hard ones that I've done. You can see them on the rest of my channel. So hopefully this is some important stuff. You know, like I said, we're going to use the queen to dominate the dark squares because our bishop is gone, but he just can't defend this e3 square. If he could stick something here, he'd be at least slightly better. He's going to still lose a full piece. But if you could put a knight here, for example, you'd still take the rook, you know, and you'd be an exchange ahead. But there's still a game to play. All right, you have two rooks. He has only one rook, but he has 4 minors, and you have 3 minors. So if he could play knight to e3, he wouldn't be dead. He'd just be losing. But queen d4 just stomps him. Okay, it is Mortal Kombat. Finish him. And that's what we're doing. We execute. Queen takes knight because I see the best he can do is interpose his queen. Interposing the bishop does nothing. I'm just going to take his rook anyway. And then I'm going to play bishop to f3 and liquidate these pieces. He'll have nothing. But he ended up having not much anyway. We come out of this a clear rook ahead. Because when you're winning, when you're a piece ahead, the thing you want to do, if you can, is to trade the opponent's queen off. It is the most dangerous piece and his best chance to somehow create a miracle. All right? And that's the key. So, man, queen e2 was my best friend. I'm like, dude, I'm going to take your queen. Goodbye. Thank you for the free rook. I will pocket this and you're dead. He played king to f2, and we just retreat the bishop to b7 and be done with him. And we'll just mop this up. There's no way. There's no way you're going to lose this. You know, when you're a piece ahead, you want to trade pieces. Just that simple. You want to make it, you know, at this point we have 3 minors. He's got 3 minors. We have 2 rooks. He's got 1 rook. We're a rook ahead. So every time, if you look at it on the numbers, we have 5 pieces. He has 4. Every time we trade one, the differential becomes larger. So right now, he has 80% of what we have. If we trade a bishop for another bishop, well, he'd have 3 against 4. He has 75% of what we have. We trade another piece, he'd have 2 against 3. He'd have 66% of what we have. If we trade another piece, he'd have 1 piece, we'd have 2 pieces. He's got 50%. You see how the power is increasing relative to the defender as your number of pieces decreases. That sounds really convoluted. Trade pieces if you can without losing position too much. You can sometimes you could give up a pawn to remove a rook or a queen or maybe a really strongly posted minor piece. But you don't want to be crazy about it. Use common sense. You know, do your best. And I always tell students, do your best. If you do your best and you lose, I'm still going to say you did good, because that's what you have to do. Chess is a very difficult game. You have to be playing your best. You're going to play games. I've done it myself. I played some great games that I lost, some great games that I drew. I was playing really good players. Hey, they played better than me or played just as well as I did. Fine. That's no problem. That's not an insult. If you do your best, you can be proud that you gave it your best. Hey, that guy was just better than you today. That's fine. Just because you lost doesn't mean you're no good. Now, if you don't do your homework, you deserve that F at school when you don't do your homework, right? It's just the same thing. Do your homework in chess and you're going to win more games. You can't win them all. No one can. It's not possible. Unless you play garbage players. Okay, that doesn't count. So, hopefully this problem will help invigorate you and give you positive thoughts for the future, because I know you can do it. You guys know what to do. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends, but don't tell your enemies. All right, I'll talk to you later.